Good evening, everyone. Tonight we have Cyn Shrader Hill, a native of Fayetteville in Lincoln County, Tennessee. Again, all these Tennessee connections. She's a paranormal investigator and researcher who enjoys working with audio to uncover EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon. She's the founder of Elk Valley Paranormal that serves the southern Tennessee and northern Alabama area. She's a storyteller who enjoys speaking about hauntings, signs from beyond, and EVPs. She's a self-published author of 5 books available on Amazon in paperback and the Kindle version, and has edited many more books. So tonight we have Cyn Shrader Hill. Good evening, Jason. How you doing tonight?
Good. How are you doing, man?
I am doing good. It was a good week since the last time I saw you. Actually, saw you the other night. But
Yep.
yeah, it's been a good week.
Good. Yeah, it's going by quick, so I'll take it.
Yeah. What else been going on? You had everyone knew that you were testing.
Yes.
You passed your test. Yay.
Passed it. So one more class and I have my degree. So yeah, super
Nice.
excited.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
2 weeks from now, we will be out in Gettysburg, Tennessee.
Chilling out.
Gosh, Tennessee stuck in my head now. We were just talking about how we started out the podcast as almost like a Tennessee podcast. So Tennessee stuck in my head. Anyway, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Yep. Super excited for that trip. We're going to do some cool stuff when we're out there. Hit some ghost tours. We've got a little experiment we're going to try when we're out there that we'll film and put out for everybody. I'm really excited to see what we get with that little experiment, though.
Yeah, I've been out there before, and that's one of the things I bring up when we start talking about places you've been. I'm excited to see y'all's reaction when we start hearing stuff and that kind of stuff. So, well, tonight we have a great guest again from Tennessee, and we'll bring Cyn Shrader Hill in and talk about some of that stuff with her.
Sounds good.
Hey.
Hello. How are you this evening?
I'm great. How about you two?
Wonderful. Doing well.
I see my friend Jenny's already in the chat.
That's great. We love people coming in and interacting. So if you do have questions tonight or anything to say, go ahead and hit us up in the chat. Hopefully we can get a bunch of stuff covered and get some of those questions across too.
Whatever you need to ask, just go.
Let's start with what got you interested in the paranormal?
I've always been interested in it. I always loved ghost stories, always loved anything scary. Edgar Allan Poe was my favorite since I was 10 years old. And my 2 bedtime stories, one my mother told me was The Highwaymen. And it was this, if you don't know what that is, the highwaymen came riding up to the old inn door. And she would do all of the voices. And it was about murder and rape and just horrible things. But I loved to hear her talk it. And then my grandmother always told me a ghost story about my great uncle as he was riding home one night. So it would always end with, "Boo, now go to sleep." And I would make her tell it every night. And she would like, "I just told it to you, but I wanted to hear it again. It's my favorite." So that's been since I was little, like 5 and 6 and 7, somewhere along in there. I don't know. I've just always been a weird kid. So it just kind of fits.
See, I'm still like that. I'm like, I got to watch Terrifier while I go to bed, or Hell House, or something like that.
Yeah.
Relaxing movies.
I think it is too. And most people don't.
Yep.
But I do. Hey, Mike.
Aaron.
I'm not a horror movie person.
Are you not? How can you not be?
I mean, I can watch them, but it's not something that I have to go watch or go see or anything like that.
It's even in your voice. I can watch them.
Yep.
It's like if you have to twist your arm, right?
Yeah.
I can watch it.
I think most of our watchers know I'm an Old West junkie, so you just give me a good Western and I'm happy.
Yep. Give them Tombstone or Wyatt Earp or something like that.
Tombstone. There's nothing better than Tombstone.
Right?
Nothing better. However, did you see Bone Tomahawk?
Yes. Yeah.
That's
pretty. Yeah, it was kind of horror-ish, psychological. Yeah.
I haven't caught that one yet.
Have you not?
I have not.
It's very strange, very graphic, and Kurt Russell, great actor, but very strange for a Western.
I grew up on Tombstone, Wyatt Earp.
Yeah, we kind of lost you there, Jason. I'm not sure what's going on.
Could just barely hear.
Yep. So it started young, and then as you grew older, is it something that you thought that you would continue with?
I had no idea.
Starting a paranormal team?
No, I never thought about that growing up. I just always wanted to go to for Halloween, the scariest haunted houses there were and anything like that. I didn't really think about real ghosts and things like that because I had never seen an apparition. I had weird things happen. I had something attached to a doll I had when I was little. So in the house I grew up in, it was actually rolled down the hill on logs to its current position.
Oh, that's
and cool. Yeah, very, very weird. Right at the turn of the 1900s. So rolled down the hill, and that was the house I grew up in. It's also the house that uncle of mine, he rented half of it at one time and lived there with my grandmother. So he was kind of always around, and there was always funny stories about him because he was a scaredy cat. So that was fun. But something was always at that house, but I didn't know what it was. Didn't know. I had a night terror when I was 16. One of those things where you can't move except your eyes.
Oh.
And I don't know why. I don't know what that was still. But it was just weird things after weird thing after weird thing. Panic attacks. I started having those when I was 10. And I realized someone actually told me when I was 50 that I was sensitive. Really? I didn't. No idea. No idea. So I learned I guess I was about 47-ish. But anyway, I didn't know that. And it was when I had just gotten involved with a paranormal group. And that's after all the TV shows were on. I knew I wanted a group, but I had no idea how to go about it. I'd only done group tours, history tours, things like that at the big locations. Loved that, but wanted to be able to stay overnight and do things. Mm-hmm. Had no idea how, but I joined a group and they taught me, they trained me. I became their case manager. So I found places for us and they taught me everything about equipment and how you talk to people that you're going into their house. What kind of questions do you ask them as a questionnaire, whatever. And just different things, how to be safe. and it just kind of steamrolled. A year later, I founded Elk Valley Paranormal and brought over a friend of mine that I had trained on that first team. So we founded Elk Valley together, and it serves the southern Tennessee, middle Tennessee, northern Alabama area. So 2020 kind of kicked us in the butt and stopped everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the most I've done since then is actually teaching people how to smudge their own spaces.
Oh, nice.
You know, how to clear out all that energy, because 2020 was a wreck. It just got from bad to worse.
Yep.
And people that weren't used to being at home were suddenly stuck with family they loved, but people got on each other's nerves.
Right.
And you couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go out to dinner. You couldn't go see a movie. You could not leave these people. And saging was actually helping them to at least lighten up their space
Mm-hmm.
and give them a handle on what was going on around them.
Yeah, I found it interesting how people were acting too, like right after lockdown. It seemed like everyone was just so pent up. You know, you could just like you go out anywhere and you can just almost feel that, you know, aggression coming off people. You know, it was definitely strange for the first year after, you know, kind of coming out of the whole COVID lockdown thing.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll ever really get back to normal.
Right.
It's
Right.
just
It's going to take a long time for it to even get close, but
mhm.
there's that generation that just doesn't have the social, you know, let's stay, you know, they were locked down. They didn't finish school that year, or even the next year, it was still virtual for so long. So those social skills are still a little, yeah. So it'll never get back to what we know, but hopefully there will be something where it's back to more of a normal
Right.
that we know.
Hopefully.
So,
And then, you know, after 2020, all these big hurricanes and stuff started coming in. So my friend Jenny and Mike that are in the chat went through that last big one that came into the Carolinas.
oh,
So
yeah.
do I need to fix my settings?
Nope, not at all.
Okay.
There's a little bit of, but it's all right.
Okay. They had flooding all around them. They were cut off for a few months.
Oh, geez.
And the only thing that happened to them specifically was the cap on the chimney blew off. The little plastic cap that's on top of the chimney blew off. That's it.
Other than that, untouched.
I mean, you know, of course they were without power, cell, you know, all the things, but they were alive. They had each other. They had their pets. They had their home. They couldn't get out for 2 weeks. You know, they were kind of stuck as far as having to stay there 2 weeks. And they even camped out around their fire pit. And that's when they started finding out that they were hearing Bigfoot whoops and things like that. So you might want to talk to them on your show one of these times, because they're pretty interesting.
I love hearing the stories about, you know, Mount St. Helens, for example.
Oh, wow.
You know, when that went, and hearing all the stories of, you know, Sasquatch supposedly migrating out of that area. You know, I just find it really fascinating when these natural disasters happen. You know, is when the increase in sightings will happen, and you know, you get people like that. They're just outside and they're hearing, you know, things outside their home they havenly heard before, right? So it's obviously pushing these animals, you know, or whatever you want to call them, you know, out of their natural area.
And the UFO stuff, you know, that's just all of a sudden everywhere. They were seeing different things around them that would just be hovering balls of light, and very strange, very strange. You couldn't hear anything. It was just like a silent ball of light, just kind of stationed, just sitting there.
And
So,
once again, over areas of natural disaster or nuclear incidents, right? Like Fukushima, um, they still have a ton of UFO sightings over Fukushima right now. To where, a few years ago, Japan actually opened up an office of investigation to look into these UFO UAP sightings.
wow.
So, do we have someone kind of keeping an eye on what's going on, around the planet? And, the natural disasters bring out a lot of really, really strange activity all around.
How much do you think UAP, UFO, Bigfoot, cryptid, and paranormal, as far as ghosts and things like, how much do you think all that is connected, if at all?
I believe because of the layers of energy around us that I think a lot of it is connected. Like Aaron and I have been talking about this seems more and more recently, as far as just for example, traveling. Do spirits speak a different languages, or are they kind of in they've become part of the one, right? They're all one
Mm-hmm.
big massive energy now. So is
Mm-hmm.
everything universal? I tend to believe it's kind of universal, and there is no more language, so to speak,
Right.
once you cross over. And then I go back and forth on the Sasquatch thing, because I've seen, Expedition Bigfoot. They're doing some really, really interesting work. And seeing that LiDAR scanner they had the scientists come out with this massive LiDAR scanner. They're scanning their camp, and they capture, a bipedal movement going in front of the LiDAR scanner that wasn't visible to the people that were around. But you can see the
Wow.
disturbance in the LiDAR field, that they were scanning. So it's like that's really kind of caused me to think a little more about whether Sasquatch is just an animal we haven't found yet, or
Mm-hmm.
something that, is dimensional, or,
Mm-hmm.
some kind of, paranormal type being.
Right. Right. I tend to think they're all connected somehow, just because of vibrational energy. I think we're all vibrating at different rates. They're vibrating at different rates, and maybe they are able to show themselves to someone that is close to their vibrational level at times. I don't know about that. Um, there's so much. There's
Yep.
so much to try to figure out, and I don't think we ever will.
And then
we talked to someone who was a Bigfoot researcher and had a video where it looked like there was a portal a couple 100 yards away from them, but they could see like a portal in this in that image go towards that portal and into that portal. So that's
brush. Yep.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. Like, I haven't been a big Bigfoot person until we started this podcast, and we've had some people on, and I'm a little more into it. At some point, we're going to head south. There's been quite a few sightings, 50 to 60 miles away from us. So we're going to hop in the truck, Jason and I, and head down one weekend and hang out for the night and see what we can see. But I don't know if it's interdimensional or not. That's still something I have to think about, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's like there's time slips too. Do they use those? Do they use? Who knows? Who knows?
Right.
I was not even aware of any or of all of the different cryptids for ever, except for the last 3 years. I started doing podcasts, and people were talking about different things, and I had no clue. But then I found out that in where I live, there's a cryptid It's a Bigfoot type guy. It's called the Flintville Monster, and it is or was seen about 5 miles from where I live right now.
Oh,
I've never seen it, but several people have. So there is that.
that's pretty cool. Yeah, one of the craziest cryptids that we've talked about on here. I know I'm not going to get it right. So, Jason, what's that Colorado cryptid?
The Slide Rock Bolter.
Yeah. So it's this whale-shaped cryptid that hooks its tail to the top of mountains and then will slide down the mountain to knock people over, kill them, whatever they do.
But it's whale shaped?
Yeah.
What?
I think it goes back to like, a big ocean. And here this one thing maybe got stuck here and here it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
What? Oh my, see?
Yep. So it slid into a town in Colorado, right, Jason? And took out a town back in the day or something.
Yep. Yeah, and it seems to kind of stem from trying to come up with a a logical reason, right, for people back then, of why I think rock slides, landslides would happen and seem to devastate these these communities living at the base of mountains. So yeah, they came up with it's a, like Aaron said, it's a whale with like a hook for a tail, and it waits in ambush for people to come by or settlements to be built up, and then it slides down the mountain and
what a bully,
right?
That's just a bully.
Well, I think most cryptids aren't they? They're either elusive or bullies.
Yeah, I guess so.
And then Jason does have a favorite cryptid.
Yes, the Nightcrawler.
Pull that one up. I find it interesting. It's definitely different than the rest of them. He's looking.
I'm Googling. Hard part's trying to find a good picture.
Right. You just need to pull out your shirt with all of them on there.
Exactly. So yeah, you got these people calling the walking tooth. They're like 7-8 feet tall, and they just the way they walk is very staggering and slow. And it was it's kind of a California legend. There was one up in I think the Tetons here in Wyoming as well. One of them has come forward as obviously being faked, but for some reason I love the Fresno Nightcrawler.
The tooth.
Is it like a? I mean,
it's pretty much a head with two legs.
Okay.
It just kind of staggers wherever it's going. Like I said, moves pretty slow and just lumbers along, and that's really all that's I guess known about them.
So it's not very fast. You could get away from it if you had to.
Yeah, I think you could definitely get away from a Nightcrawler.
That's the kind of cryptid I need to run into. One that's
right?
not too
Yeah,
fast.
we can go research those all day because
So looking at an image of one, it almost makes me wonder if it's like maybe the hips of a spirit with long legs.
Could be.
You don't see the rest of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very well, it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just the way they walk is very strange.
Yeah.
Where do these things come from?
People's imaginations.
Yeah. No, and then you got the theory of
Stories.
I mean, we talked to that someone that was talking about the mansion down there in Louisiana with the legend of the drowning girl, right? And some people feel that that was kind of brought into existence by so many people hearing about that story, believing in it, that the story ended up kind of manifesting itself.
Yeah,
because of that.
I think that happens more often than we hear.
Isn't that Slender Man?
I
mean,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's it actually happened here at the old hospital. We have an old hospital, if you can believe it's haunted. The new one is too, but don't tell anybody. The old one, we've had tours in for years, and then the city cracked down and said no. They said no because they weren't getting any money from it. It's private property. Why would they? So anyway, they shut it down. But we've had so many paranormal groups in there and so many public hunts in there. It's just amazing how many people have been through there. And, you know, a lot of them that come used to work there, and they want to go back through it and see if they can feel any difference. And of course they do, because it's so strange. It's just so weird. But there's a little girl in the maternity ward, Mary, and we believe she's a thought form. My friend Mark Elliott Fultz, he's the one that does the illustrations and the covers on all my books, and I edit for him. So that's how we kind of work our money out. I edit for him. He does this for me. But he drew Mary, and he said she was very strange looking, that she was dressed like a candy striper, long blonde hair, but she had no legs, and she kind of bobbed through the hospital. And I guess it was last year sometime, he said, I know why. She's a thought form people are still working on. So,
yeah, I think there's a lot of that out there anymore, with just stories that are told about places and spirits that become manifested from thought. Yeah.
mm-hmm. And who knows, probably some of these things.
Yeah.
I always found it interesting how urban legends travel as well. It seems like no matter, before the times of the internet, obviously, where, no matter where you went, there was always, the sad bride bridge, right? The bride that was jilted at the altar ran to this bridge and threw herself off, right? Usually into a creek or a river below. Like, no matter, I've lived around the U.S. quite a bit growing up, and, you always hear kind of the same urban legends no matter where you go. And, that always fascinated me even as a kid, of like, okay, how are people coming up with these same stories all over the place?
Mm-hmm. Around here, there's Flint Light, and I can hear myself a lot coming back.
Yeah.
What do I need to do?
I'm not 100% sure.
I don't hear it.
Moved back, and
do you not?
I don't hear it.
If I stay back here. So we had. Now I lost my thought. Okay, so the Flintville Light was one of the urban legends around here that everybody saw. Not everybody. A lot of people saw this thing, and supposedly a man had lost his head by being run over by a train. There's also one in Cornersville. There's one somewhere else, and just around the Middle Tennessee area. There's more than two that I can think of. There's also, like you were talking about, the bride jumping. We've got around here Crybaby Bridge, where a baby has been, their carriage tipped over and they lost the baby.
Yep.
So there's a lot of those around.
Yeah. And then, one that was always big, at least, my time growing up, was like Gravity Hill, right?
Yes.
That's called it in Salt Lake City, where I was living in Utah. And it's always the story of a place you can park your car and put it in neutral, and you don't pay attention, or, you do or don't do something, and then you'll find yourself, at the top of this hill with little handprints all over your car from the kids that pushed your vehicle, right? Like,
right.
That was a big one. That was everywhere I lived. There was that legend.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think there's one here in 30 minutes from me. Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
I think we have one down in Denver too, don't we?
On like Three Bridge or something like that. I think there's something like that. I'm not 100% sure on that one. Sorry. While you look that one up, I am going to ask about, with your team, do you do investigations in the bigger places like the hospitals and that kind of stuff, or do you also do residentials?
We have done both. Mostly what my team will do is residentials. We also do like businesses around the area. So somebody that's having trouble at their business, we go in and help. We love going to some of the haunted locations. There's one close by us other than the old hospital, Lynchburg, Tennessee, where Jack Daniels is made. There's a Lynchburg haunted home. Used to be an old funeral home. It was a flower house or a florist, I think, at one time. I don't know what other things, but mostly it was a funeral home, and it was added onto a bunch of different times. So we've gone there a couple of times, and I have been doing since 2020. I've actually been going with some other friends outside my team, and I like doing that too because you learn different techniques. You learn different pieces of equipment that you might not have seen, or even that they're using it a little bit differently than you would have ever thought. And I love that. We're all still learning. And I think the more that we can put into learning and finding ways to investigate, the better investigation we're going to have, the better outcome we're going to have, and all that good stuff. Plus, it's more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, learning is one of the most important things with this, right? If you go in, you keep doing the same thing over and over. I was watching an argument on Facebook. Surprised I wasn't in it. But I was watching one from the outside, and there was a gentleman that just insisting the only way to be a paranormal investigator is to use scientific equipment. And I see that spouted off so much of using scientific equipment. And, that was the big thing I wondered was what is paranormal scientific equipment? Because I don't think there's anything that can measure paranormal energy, activity, however you want to put it. I haven't found one yet on the market that directly does that.
No, I don't know. Mm-mm. Unless they're talking about like the EDI meter, that's got, it can measure vibration. It can measure a temperature, humidity, I think. And there's something else. So maybe he's talking about that, but what I found out is, and learn from other people, the more you can get different pieces of your equipment to correlate. Like if the K2 is going off, and yeah, I know a lot of people do not believe in those K2s, and we tell people constantly, turn your phone off. Yep. Or no, that was a walkie-talkie. No, that was a truck driver outside at your house. It's things bother it. So yeah, they're very non-reliable. But what if you've got that going off? You got the voice coming out of the spirit box, and you've got something else. You just saw a shadow, and you caught it on. Wouldn't that be great? Catching all three things at one time on film, and being able to play it back and go, look, here is where this happened. Same time this happened. Same time this happened. Three things. Yep. So yeah, the more you can get them to lock in. Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah, get everything to work together to find that, that piece of evidence.
Doesn't happen all the time, though.
No.
Nope. We spend a lot of hours sitting in dark rooms talking to ourselves sometimes, and
so I had a friend. He wanted to know what we did, and he's I guess he was maybe, I don't know, 5, 6 years older than me. I had gone to school with his younger brother. And he called me up and he said, I want to go on a ghost hunt with you. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah, I want to see what you do. And I said, okay. We sit in the dark. And he goes, okay, I can do that. I said, all right. So he shows up and he's got, all right. So, most of the places we go that are old, abandoned, if it's not a house, it's like a concrete floor of a hospital or any, old building,
Right.
whatever. So he wears cowboy boots and is bringing his cooler in and a lawn chair. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, well, I just figured, I'm ready. Okay. Well, we had to throw out most of the audio because he was up walking around bored. All you could hear was clump, clump, clump,
Yep.
clump, clump. And he'd sit down and have another beer and you'd hear, so he didn't come back. I didn't ask him either.
We do public events, and that's one of the things that I tell everyone when we're starting out. First off, the spirits are going to do what they want to do. We can't make them do stuff. Second off, this is what we do. We sit around in the dark. If you want to do this, be sure that you like the people that you're with, because you're just going to sit there and talk to each other and ask some questions to the air and hope that you catch something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
If
5 or 6 hours of
you
awkward
might-
silence would be tough. That would be tough. You really got to like the people you're with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they're like, oh, well, okay. And then when, I'm like, okay, let's interact. Like, let's get you to ask some questions, because you don't want to hear me talk all night.
Yep.
But even when you tell them all that, it's like they don't really listen. And when they get there, they're like, well, are we just going to be right here?
Come on, I'm here.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be popping off, right? It's supposed to be going,
Yeah. Why aren't the shelves opening? Why aren't things throwing? Oh, and everything is a demon. So no.
Yeah. Well,
Everything is a demon.
yeah, we had that the other night. We did an investigation the other night, and we had the spirit, or not the spirit box, but one of the Ovilus or one of the apps or something. It's like demon. We're like, no, you're not. Hell, no, we're not doing that tonight.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
So
we were laughing about it after, because we're like, man, if we were, doing the full blown YouTube thing, right? It would be like, oh, there's a demon here, guys. We got, and instead it's like, demon, no, shut up. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
We keep talking to you. You're not going to scare us away. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's their home. They want you out of there.
Yep.
And they're going to do what they can to scare you out of there.
right.
And unfortunately, a lot of us aren't scared out of there.
Yep.
And they're like, well, she's back again. Let's go in the other room while she's here. And okay. And then
Always the next room, right?
Always the next room, because what you're in, nothing's happening in. And then you hear noises in the next room. You go in the next room. Nothing happens there. Now it's back in the one. Yeah.
Yep.
They're all tricksters.
Yeah.
They all can be little pranksters.
Yep.
Absolutely.
But it's fun still.
So, Cyn, how long have you been writing books? Did you start writing books before you started doing the paranormal stuff? After?
No.
Okay, so after. So then you started doing that, and you're like, hey, I have enough stuff. Like, I'm just going to write. So what was your first book about?
My first book was Whispers in the Dark, True Ghost Stories. And it's mostly, it's all short stories, 23 of them. Most of them are here in this county. And it's things that have actually happened to me, my friends, a couple of people that had told me stories from around the ere. So there's a couple of Lynchburg stories in there, and then the other three, were, one was when I was on vacation in Georgia, one was when I lived in Arizona, and the other is when my friend, who was on the team for a while, she had an experience in Georgia. So, it was my first book was supposed to be about EVPs, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. So I went ahead and did the short story first and just got those out. My friend Mark, I had not written anything, and he actually talked me into it. I was editing his books, and about the second one, I was looking over and putting together for him. He said, "When are you going to write yours?" I said, "I don't really think I got anything." He goes, "No, you got a book. It's time." And so he gave me that little push to get started.
Nice.
4 of my short stories from that first book, before I even made it a book, actually went into another friend of mine, Till Gray's book. And she had a lot of people give some stories about different things that had happened to them. So she actually let me put my 4 in her. So she actually gave me the start in getting my stories out there. And then I got my nerve up and did my first one. But the third book was supposed to be the first one. And it took me, Mark and I went ahead and wrote a fiction book after that first one, and just to see if we could do a fiction book, and we did. And the third book, Web of Terror. Mm-hmm. The third one, They're Speaking, Are You Listening? I finally figured out how to do it because I wanted people to be able to hear the EVPs. And so if you go on elkvalleyparanormal.com to the evidence section, you can pull down that menu and there's a They're Speaking tab. If you click on that, there's over 100 EVPs that are in that book, and you can listen to all of them. So I finally got that together.
That's pretty cool.
That's a really cool solution to that.
Yeah.
It took a while, but yeah, I was pretty proud of that. Now, the fourth book is about signs of our loved ones, and it was like God put that on me. And you need to do that. And I was like, I don't really know. I mean, I've heard people talk about deathbed conversations and people, coming back to say hello, and pennies from the heaven and feathers and redbirds and all this kind of stuff. So I started it. My mom had fallen. She saw my grandmother who had died about 20 years prior. And my grandmother just shook her head at her like, it's not your time. So I had that story. Mom had heard my dad taking a shower. She heard my grandmother walking around the kitchen and different things like that. I didn't have anything. So I put a feeler out on Facebook and said, this is what I'm looking for. If you've got any of these stories, near-death experiences, deathbed conversations, anything like that, let me read them. Hopefully I can use them for the book. I got bombarded with all over the country, people sending me something. And so what I did to make it seem right for them to bless me with their stories, I put a memorial section. So after their story, it says, in memory of Aunt Lucy, 1942 to, whatever. A pet. My friend Eric Freeman Sims, his dog Chase would come back and see him. So after his story, it was in memory of Chase and the year he died. So different things like that. And that's how I got it out. When I got that one finished, I already had more coming in. So the sequel is coming out next. And I've just about got the next, actually that's going to be in 2. But I had to separate it. I was getting so many stories that I ended up separating my near-death experiences, angel rescues, and spirit warnings from all the other signs. So Death's Doorstep is what's coming out next. And it's going to be about those kind of stories. And actually, it's going to be out within the next couple of weeks. The Signs book is going to be out probably a couple months after that. Let's see, that fifth book, I got ahead of myself. The fifth book, Realm of Shadows, was some of the darker stuff and creepier, kind of stuff that, ooh, was that a demon? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. So those are the 5 up there. And there's soon to be 6 and 7.
Nice.
Yeah, and they're on Kindle Unlimited too, which I love because I devour books, and I don't even know how much money I would have spent if it was the unlimited subscription.
Yeah. So yeah, if you have Kindle Unlimited, they are free. Grab them.
So number one, I think that is a very, I guess, classy way you found to kind of memorialize and show respect for these people, that are part of, the stories that you're telling. But really, I think you've really kind of found yourself in a unique position to paranormal investigators with capturing all of this data, hearing all of these stories. Is there anything after going through these, that you're kind of finding in common within all these near-death experiences, for example?
There have been a lot of reference to a light of some sort. There has been a lot of reference to out of body looking down at themselves, wherever this is. Some of the near-death experiences are really more what I think of as angel rescues. You didn't die, you escaped death. That kind of thing.
Okay.
And then there's also the warning from spirit that you get, like, I got a weird feeling about going to that thing today. I don't know if I should go. Or, oh, I need to call mom real quick. I don't know why, but I got to call mom real quick. Those are kind of spirit warnings. So, hey, Eric, I just talked about your dog Chase. So Eric is on there. He's he lives up in Fairview, but he has a haunted house in Hopkinsville. If you guys ever get over to this area, he has the night house in Hopkinsville.
If we get over to the Tennessee area, we have so many people and so many places are like, we'll take you here, we'll take you there.
Yeah.
Tennessee has one of my bucket list places. I want to go to Brushy Mountain.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I went with Eric. I went with Eric and the group.
Yeah. See that one of these times that's going to be our trip.
It's a good place to go.
Yeah. We're gonna have to do like an F-it trip, Aaron, and just F work and get an RV and go spend like 90 days out there and just hit all these awesome places that people tell us about, and then we can come back completely decompressed and relaxed and then get back to normal life.
Make sure you call me. I'll meet you somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure. So you said the next one is dropping in 2 to 3 weeks?
Yeah. Death's Doorstep. Near-death experiences, angel rescues, and spirit warnings. So that's coming out really quick. And in a couple of months, it's Not Goodbye 2, More Signs from Beyond. That'll be out. So that's more of the seeing the cardinals. Who do you think of? Seeing apparitions actually come back and say, I'm okay. Or pets coming back and different things like that.
Interesting.
So,
cool.
Yeah, I've already got all of that. I'm excited for the new books, Eric. I'm so excited, because I spent the last 14 and a half months working on one of Mark's. So he's letting me get 2, 3, maybe 4 books out before I work on another one of his.
There you go. Yeah.
14 and a half months. Wow. But I'll just show it to you. So this is Eric's. No, I'm sorry, Eric. This is Mark's book.
My mean old grandma's good old cookbook.
And more. And it's that thick. It looks like an old phone book.
Yep.
It's got 1,788 recipes in it.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
I had never done a cookbook, and I said, oh, sure. That's going to be easy. That was the worst ever. And we were both pulling our hair out. And he would call and say, Cyn, do we have sailor's eggs? No.
Nope.
Oh, good, because I found 2 recipes. Okay, good. I'll send those on. Cyn, do we have deer haggis? No, we've got sheep haggis, but we don't have deer. Okay, I'll send you the deer one. You know, and so it's I mean, it's Good Sister. He divided it up. Good Sister recipes, which is really good stuff. And then the Bad Sister recipes, the Ugly Sister recipes, where, you know, a lot of people do like that kind of stuff, but most of us go, yeah, I will taste something if someone else makes it in their house. I'm not cooking it. I don't want to smell it.
Yeah.
No. But I would be going along with, oh, yum, orange cookies. Oh, gosh, a pound cake. That sounds, ooh, spaghetti with blah, blah, blah. And, oh, my goodness. Oh, this potato fixed with like scallop potatoes, but with so-and-so. Oh, this is wonderful. And then all of a sudden, squirrel dumplings.
Yeah.
Oh. Mark.
I was just going to say raccoon shepherd's pie. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got in there how to bleed a raccoon so you can cook it. He's got possum. He's got beaver, I think. He's got God. I mean, the sailor's eggs, I said earlier, uses bloater's paste, and it's this gland in the fish that makes them float.
Okay.
So it's the innards, and it makes everything really gamey. And
I think I'd rather have squirrel and dumplings.
I think I would too. I think I would. However, when I was doing home health, I went to this one lady. She's 100 years old, and I show up with my Subway sandwich wrapper. I'm finished with it, and she goes, "You're late." And I said, "No, ma'am. It's 12 o'clock." She said, "I mean for lunch. You could have had squirrel dumplings with me." I went, "Oh, I just ate."
Darn it. I just had my foot-long spicy Italian. Sorry.
I have a guy that used to work for me from Tennessee, and I remember him talking about his grandma and his mom and squirrel dumplings. And so when you said that, like, he popped right into my head. Oh, gosh. That's hilarious.
I'm telling you. Squirrel pot pie. Listen, he's got all kinds. He does have really interesting things in there about like funeral food, why it started. And it started really with the sin eater custom. And do you know anything about sin eater? Okay. It is a European custom where they had a man or a family, a group of people that acted as sin eaters. And they would live on the outskirts of town and just kind of off by themselves, very poor. And so when someone would die, the females of the family would wash the body and prepare the body to have the wake in the front of the house, or actually in the front yard, whichever they did. And they would prepare a dough and put a cloth on the deceased chest, put the dough on top of it, let it rise. So as it rose, it would take the person's essence into it. So then they'd bake it and bring it back and offer it not only to the sin eater, but they could pass it around to the people that had come. They ended up doing cookies after a long while. You know, they started doing cookies instead, but they would still let it sit on the chest and let the essence go into it. But the sin eater would be called, and he would come into town, into this person's house. He would, there was a certain speech that he said, and he was very welcome because he was going to take the person's sin away from them so that they could go to heaven. And the woman, whoever was in charge, would hand him a stool to sit on underneath the casket that was up on whatever, and then pay him over the top of the body. And he would sit and he would gorge on the bread and on mead and just gorge himself until there was nothing left. Then so the poor, if they were blessed to be sin eaters, they knew that at least they would eat.
Huh. That's interesting. Never heard of that.
Yeah. Before the sin eater actually came, they would actually, and I can't believe this, but, and I can't believe I'm going to tell you this, but it's part of history. So before the sin eater and having the bread and all that kind of stuff, people would actually eat a part of the body.
Oh.
So that person would live forever through them.
Yep.
So,
Well, that goes a lot like, you know, the cannibalistic tribes, right? In New Guinea, you know, eating their rival warriors, right? To like ingest and absorb their essence and their power, you know, kind of comes on the same lines.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that still goes on. Because, you know,
some of those tribes that, you know, like that Sentinel tribe that's on that island, you know.
That Sentinel Island tribe, yeah, that's
that's the one you don't want to go meet.
No.
Right.
No,
like the very few people that have gone there just end up gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Never seen
it. They like shoot arrows at the planes that fly over, and yeah.
Not a vacation spot.
No. Royal Caribbean is not going to stop there.
No, that's a good thing. Can you imagine being marooned? What a horror story. Hey, that's a good horror story start.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about what kind of excursions they would have.
It all involves running.
Yeah.
Away.
Yeah. That's the one word that I hate hearing come across anything. Run. Do I look like I run?
And you hope you're not the slowest one.
Right? Yeah. All he's got to do is kick Jason in the knee.
Yeah. I watched a video the other day of these. There's a lot of people on this trail, and this bear was like coming at them. And here they're like backing up, and some are turning and walking. I'm like, only one of you has to like kick someone in the knee. The rest are going to be fine.
Everyone else is good.
Yeah.
How do you choose, though?
Slowest one.
Who annoyed you that day?
What if that's like your favorite aunt or something? You know?
Well, someone has to take one for the team.
All I can say is, I hope I'm faster than you two. If we get picked up and Bigfoot is after us, I hope I'm faster than you two.
If Bigfoot's after us, boy, he mentioned Expedition Bigfoot earlier. We went to Bigfoot Days down in Colorado, and Russell had talked about a thermal So we just picked up that thermal, and I'm excited. We're talking about Bigfoot again. I'm excited to get out and try this thing out.
Yeah.
And see if we catch something, because this thing is phenomenal.
What kind of thermal did you get?
It's made by Pard, P-A-R-D, and it's a handheld, and it's he's going to pull it up because he's quick with that. It's pretty expensive. It runs about $2,000.
Okay.
But like, we haven't changed the battery in it yet, and we've had it on 2 investigations.
Oh,
So
wow. Nice.
the handle is separate and will hold a battery that will last 10 hours continuously.
Wow.
It's also made for like hunting. So you can do like a Picatinny rail on it, and it has a smaller battery in the back of that viewfinder. And we have used the small battery on 2 investigations now, and I haven't put the other one in. But yeah, when you put the handle on, it connects in 10-hour continuous time. This thing is great.
Sphinx. Yep.
Yeah, the Sphinx. Awesome. Yep.
So we brought it to a location to test when he got it in, and which is the Knights of Pythias. It's a fraternal lodge, so it's a big lodge, And my daughter was sitting across the room on this bench that has a vinyl seat and a vinyl back to it, right? And she goes, "Aaron, see if you can see what I write." And she wrote her name in cursive with her finger.
As she's writing it, just the heat from her finger was enough. And then one of the lights in the lodge is a little hot behind it, and we're like, well, you probably need to have that looked at. So
wow.
So super sensitive, and it does. It's like a base magnification to 3x, but then you can, I think, digitally magnify it. What is it, 27 times? 28 times? Yeah, it's impressive.
You got a good toy.
1,800 yards. Russ, the guy on there is he was a ranger, I think, right, Jason?
He was 25th ID out of Hawaii.
I mean, so thermal was kind of his thing anyway, and he's like, "Oh, I have lots of them, but this is my go-to, and I can see why."
Wow.
I'm in that business, and we have a lot of guys that come in looking for him, and I'm like, if I live like 4 blocks from where I work, and I'm like, if someone wants to see it, I have no problem going home, because we would have no problem selling these things for people out here.
Yep.
I see Eric does mention the flare. Looking at the flare compared to this Pard stuff, the clarity and the adjustability of the Pard is just quite a bit better than flares, because we looked at the flares when we were looking at thermal, and then we had just gone down there. And it's part of a group that we can order from at my job, and I was like, I'm gonna check it out and just order one. So
I had the FLIR for my cell phone, and it worked for one cell phone, and then it didn't work for my next one. It worked on my husband's phone, but I started looking around, and another friend of mine, Daniel, had this FLIR camera. And where did you get that? Amazon? Okay, well, that's my best friend anyway. And
right.
So, but it's like nothing compared to y'all's. But I'm super excited about this one because it's fun. It'll take pictures and video, and
this will do video and pictures, and it'll go to an app, and it'll show on. If your friends have the app, they can just pull it up while you're looking. It's pretty cool. So we're always looking at new toys. I mean, it's what we do, right? It's your hobby, and that's what you do. So
there's several different things, and as far as little things like people that hold pendulums, and really you could make that happen, right? So there is a stand that you can put a little mat under that's got the yes, no, and all that kind of stuff. But you can put the pendulum on a stand, step back, and if there's no, like if you're not outside, so there's no breeze, hopefully you can get something going there without you having to worry about, am I shaking that? Am I doing that? Am I doing that? So my husband, I'll go, Greg, look at this. Look, okay, here it is. Here it is. Can you make me something like that?
Yep.
And he does more often than not. So that's the next thing he's making for me.
Very cool. See,
Yeah.
and that's my problem with dowsing rods. Is I'll be holding them and I'm like, man, I can feel like my hands, like kind of moving in and out just a little bit, right? And
Did you see? Did you see the new holders you can get for them?
No.
Somebody is selling this. Somebody's selling this. It's a piece of plastic with 2 plastic tubes that you sit the handles down into, and they can move on their own.
Yeah, but is it working the way it should? Because isn't that part of your energy that helps with it? And
Just saying,
Yeah,
there's
right.
all kinds of gadgets out there.
So I did put the link to that over in the chat for everyone, just so if you want to go check it out, you can.
Absolutely.
And then yes, the EMF tripwire, Eric.
Yeah.
We have a tripwire. We love
Amazing.
it.
Yes.
You guys have one?
Mhm.
Yes.
They're
I'm
kind of
a-
expensive too.
They are. I
thing
love how
junkie.
creative you can get with it. Just like we did. We had a VIP investigation last weekend, and we were able. It was a museum, so they had these rows of old saddles, right? And we were able to thread the EMF tripwire through these rows, and get this huge field of coverage that trying to get answers for hey, which saddle was yours, or stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've used it at a location where you can see where they'll walk up like in a hallway and walk right past it, and everything will change and then go back as it comes down in the wire.
Nice.
They're really cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a gadget junkie, so
Me too.
Same here.
yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like the more you get, the more you want.
Mhm.
This is a very expensive hobby for
It really
anybody starting out. It's very
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
But anybody asking how to start, what they need, I'll say flashlight. If you want a piece of equipment, get a digital recorder.
Digital recorder.
Mhm.
Yep,
And use your body and feel what you're supposed to.
Just go out and experience it. You're
Mhm.
not at the level where evidence needs to be captured on everything, right? You just need to go out and kind of
Even
get the vibe.
even the voice recorder app on your phone,
Yeah.
will work. A flashlight so you see where you're going, and any kind of recording device.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah.
Speaking of,
I love EVPs. That's
me too.
I do love those.
Me too. Me too.
I'm going to look at your EVP book when we get done, in fact. So
talking about that, the science book, 2020 hit. So I lost motivation, and I had these stories, but I just everybody else was down, I was down. So didn't get my motivation back that next year either, because it was so weird. But in 2022, I started writing again. And then the next month, I lost my nephew. And he was my mini-me. I was training him to be my videographer for the group. And he had been around to a few of our investigations. He'd heard Sean has this way about him. He's my skeptic, and he can debunk anything and everything. And when he can't, it's like, ooh, maybe we do have something there.
Yep.
He's just a cool guy. But Wyatt had listened to him, and Wyatt was only 19 and a half when this happened. So it was a bad situation. But he had heard Sean say, if anybody's in here that can talk to us, get as close to that red dot as you can. Speak as loudly as you can, and hopefully we can hear it. Maybe later. We might not be able to hear you now, but hopefully later. And after Wyatt passed, it took a while to get back writing again. But it was that was in April the 6th, 2022, when that happened. And it took a couple months to get back in writing. A few months later, my sister, it was in February 23rd of 23. And I've still got it on my phone because I was taping her telling me a story that had happened about something that was so unbelievably convoluted and all came together. There's no way without divine intervention any of that could have happened. It was just the weirdest story. So I was getting her to tell me that. And it took me another month to be able to listen to it again because they're hard to hear those stories again. We're all still tearful over him. And oh, it's just something that we won't ever get over. He was my sister's only child. She had had 5 miscarriages and he stuck. She got to keep him for 19 and a half years. He was the only grandchild. He was the only nephew. He was my mini me. And, he was just a cool kid. And then to have him be taken, it's just, we'll never get over it.
Right.
And Jenny's asking for it. I have Wyatt speaking on that story. I was transcribing a month later, and I was sitting on the couch, listening and writing, and at 6 minutes and 42 seconds in, I heard my nephew speak.
Wow.
And I stopped and I thought, I imagine that. There's no way I heard that. There's no way. And I rewound it a little bit and listened, and it was Wyatt. And so I went and banged on the door of the bathroom because my husband had said, I'm going to go take a shower. I went and banged on the door and said, are you in the shower? And he goes, no. I said, please come out here. And he said, what is it? What is it? And I said, I just need you to listen for a second. And he said, what happened? And I said, I just need you to sit down and listen. He said, tell me what's wrong, what's happened to somebody. And I said, nothing. I need you to sit and listen to this. And he sat down and I played it for him. And immediately he said, that's Wyatt. Yeah, that's my baby. That's my baby. I can play it for you if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable sharing that, absolutely.
I'd be more than happy to. You're going to hear my sister speaking. She's telling the story. And she and I are sitting on her couch. We've got the television on, but it's on mute because she's telling me the story. Her dog and her cat are with us, but they're both sound asleep. And she's the only one talking. I'm recording on my phone. So let me turn this up.
He said, your son's name was Wyatt, and he drove an El Camino. And I said, yeah. And then he said,
Did you hear that?
Then he said,
You're muted, Aaron.
Was it the did you hear that? That is like class A, like someone's talking right there.
I've had
Holy
people say,
cow.
was that you? And I said, no, it's not me. You want to hear it again?
Yeah,
Ooh,
please.
Yeah.
and I said, yeah. And then he said,
Did you hear that?
Then he said,
he actually, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's 2 little taps, and we did not hear it at the time. But he taps on something, tap, tap, and then says, did you hear that? And he's smiling when he's saying it because he was my little prankster. We joked all the time. We were always trying to, oh, I'm going to sneak up on you, Wyatt, this, and just playing. And he was smiling as he said that.
Yeah.
That is
That
so
is,
clear.
yeah,
Oof,
hands down the best EVP I've ever heard.
ever.
Me
That
too.
is
Best I've
the
ever gotten.
clearest. Wow.
Yeah, and if I never get another EVP from him, this is enough. I've got it saved on everything.
That's good.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, for it to be that clear and from somebody that meant so much to you, you know,
Mhm.
how much energy had to go into imprinting that,
But
right?
it just shows that he had listened to Sean.
Yep.
Get as close as you can to that red dot. Talk as loudly as you can. And he
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
But
That's
God,
awesome.
we miss him every day. Every day.
And I had my eyes closed because I was listening the first time and I hear, did you hear that? I thought that was you
Yeah.
asking, did you hear that? I'm like, man, I missed it. Like I did. Like, wow.
Yeah.
That is definitely like super clear. Wow. Maybe that tap was like, I wonder if this is working. Type, is this,
It could be. It could be. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Is this
don't
on?
know. Maybe he did that to see if we would look around. I don't know. From the beginning, he was turning off or on his light in his bedroom and opening or closing his door. He's shown up to his mom a couple of times, full body. He's also shown up as a actually she said it was a basketball size orb, and it was just I said, did you talk to it? She said, no, I was just in awe. I said, where was Bo? What was he doing? She said he just sat and watched, and it was about, she said, chest height of him. And I said, how long was it here? And she said, Cindy, I bet I watched it for about 20 minutes.
Wow.
Oh my God.
And then it just went. She'll be in her bedroom, and the dog and the cat will come running in and then stop, turn around, and run back out. Well, that's what they used to do. Wyatt would chase them in and then turn around and run back, and they would chase him back.
Yep.
And, and they're still doing it.
That's, I mean, it's such a tragic story with Wyatt. But to receive such crystal clear confirmation, right? And you can hear in the voice, it's not, a tortured
No.
spirit or soul. It's somebody, like you said, you can hear him smiling in that. And to receive that confirmation that your loved ones are still there.
Yeah. Now, to my mom, his grandmother, the way he would show up to her, she has a Kindle, and she would be drinking her coffee, sitting at the table, Kindle propped up in front of her. So when she would finish a page, she would just reach forward and tap it, and then, just sit there and read. And I came in one day, and she said, we got to get a new Kindle. I said, Mama, that one's new. And she said, something's wrong with it. I said, what's it doing? She said, well, it'll flip forward like 1 or 2 chapters, and then it'll roll back. And then I've got to, okay, here's my place. I'll start again. Then it'll roll forward, and then it'll roll back. And I said, how many times has it done that? She said, 2 or 3 times today. And I said, does it come exactly back to where you were? She said, exactly. And I said, you're not touching it. She said, no, I've got my coffee cup, and I'll punch it when I'm ready to change the page. And I said, wonder who that could be.
Yep.
And she goes, is that my baby? And I said, I think so. I think so.
Wow.
I came in the next day, and she was sitting there really quiet. And I said, Mom, are you okay? And she goes, well, no. I said, why? And she said, I think Wyatt visited me. And I said, really? What happened? And she said, don't really know how to explain it except my phone went dead, my Kindle went dead, and I thought, well, maybe I should just play solitaire or something on the tablet. So I got the tablet out and I was doing that. And then my phone, I looked over and the phone was solid black with Wyatt Johnson going across the top. And she said, and then all of a sudden, pictures of Wyatt started coming up. And she said there were about 6 of them, 5 or 6 pictures of him. And she said, I've never seen these pictures before. I want you to find them on my phone. They're not there. I was like, Mom, is it this one? She goes, no. I said, is it this one I took? She said, no, it's one I've never seen. And I said, was it from Facebook? I wasn't on Facebook. I said, yeah, I know, Mom, but sometimes things get crossed over. It was off and it came back on, and my phone said Wyatt Johnson and started showing pictures I've never seen. I have looked and I still can't find the pictures that she saw. I've looked everywhere. He's got she saw him in a sleeveless red shirt, kind of silky, and he's got, no, I'm sorry, it's sleeves. And I said, is it like this gray one? And she said, exactly like that, but red. I said, Mom, he's got this tank top that's in his other pictures. And she said, no, it had sleeves in it, but it's that red. And I said, okay, nowhere do I have a picture anywhere. Susan doesn't have one. My mother doesn't have one. Wyatt doesn't have one on any of his phones. None of his friends have this. We've looked everywhere on every hard drive I can find on, my computer, everybody's, and they're not. There's no such picture.
Interesting.
Wow.
I don't know if we'll ever figure that one out.
Right.
Wow.
But so that's how it shows up to my mom.
That's awesome that she got that opportunity to have that happen.
Yeah. And the next time that it flipped on her Kindle, she said she put it up and sat there and talked to me. Yeah, that's what you need to do. That's all he wanted. And I said, really, Mama? He was just trying to make you laugh because, come right back. Yep. I said, who else would have done that? She said, Wyatt. Yeah. Nobody but Wyatt. Yeah.
Well, Cyn, it has been great having you on. Thank you for sharing those stories right at the end.
You're welcome.
That EVP is phenomenal.
Thanks for letting me stay on this long. I appreciate you guys.
No, this is what we do. We love hearing people just tell their stories about why they've got into this, why they do it. When you drop your book, message me and we'll put it on that night to let everyone know the next night that we're on.
Yeah.
To let them know that it's out. Thanks for coming on.
Twist my arm so I can come back.
Will do.
Sounds good. Stay in touch.
When we make that big Tennessee trip, we'll get a hold of you.
Absolutely. I'll take you where the Flintville Monster is.
There you go. Go see that cryptid.
We just have to run faster than Aaron.
We're going to put you into the green room. We'll catch up with you in just a couple minutes. A little later than we usually go, but she's awesome.
Amazing
Great stories. Check out her books. That EVP book, I'm going to be right on it when we get done.
Same here.
That's cool how she made it work with the website, and you're able to go hear, what she's writing about.
Yeah. Yep. And all the research she's done, into these books is just amazing. So wonderful stories. Once again, I know we say it every week, but this is why we do this. talking to these people that just have so much passion for what they do and such interesting stories. I love it. And, I don't think this will ever get old.
I was doing something last week for an article, and I had a little bit of help writing the answer to this question. It's like, why did you start the podcast? And I was like, because we weren't busy enough. And it's opposite of that. It's because we wanted to continue to share the stuff that we get to do.
Yep.
Yep.
Get to talk about it with a bunch of different people, learn new perspectives. Just talk about something that we really love. I mean, it's, it goes beyond just being a hobby, right? When you do it, as much as some of these people do. And, it really is such a big part of our life that, we're very lucky to get to do this every week and talk to people like Cyn.
Yes, we are. Everyone, we thank you for watching tonight, and y'all have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone. See y'all next week.
Unraveling the Darkness would like to thank Horn Paranormal Research and Twinkle Twinkle Little Store for sponsoring our show. If you're craving more paranormal content, don't forget to check out our YouTube and Facebook channels at Way Out West Paranormal and Unraveling the Darkness. You can catch all of our episodes of Unraveling the Darkness on Apple Podcasts, Facebook, and YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe as it helps others find the show and join in on the paranormal fun. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, keep your lights on, stay safe, and remember, the truth is out there, and it might just be closer than you think.